Okay, time for the first of Carl's questions. Are Jews oppressing white people? This is straight to the JQ. This is tough. Before I answer this, I would like to talk about conspiracy theories in general. I'm really not a big fan of conspiracy theories because they contradict themselves in a way. If you assume you deal with a conspiracy, then you would have to assume the members of your conspiracy have a vital interest to keep their secrets. This makes it very much less likely you could learn about the conspiracy. On the other hand, if you have real data which seems to show there is indeed something going on, the very fact you have this data could be seen as evidence for the assumption it is not a conspiracy. In other words, if I stumble about a conspiracy theory which can provide good data, my first impulse is to search other explanations for the phenomenon. Where does this lead to in regards to the JQ? Are Jews oppressing white people? Yes, to my knowledge, there is sufficient data to support this claim. Is this a conspiracy? Yes, I get it is, in a way. Is this conspiracy orchestrated by some kind of mastermind? Well, probably yes, but honestly, I do not believe this. Instead, I would mention two other concepts: swarm intelligence and nepotism, aka social narcissism. In a nutshell, this means you have a sub-tribe within your society. This can apply to a bunch of Somalis who dominate drug dealing on the streets, or to Hispanic gang members. These examples would create a criminal underclass. It can also apply to Chinese people who tend to be smart and work hard. They will outperform your native population and become a wealthy, influential elite over time. Jews tend to be smart and have a strong affinity to education. They will also outperform your native population and make their way into influential positions of your society. This works out good for this type of group. They behave tribalistic, which means they support and prefer each other. And now a simple rule comes into play. Groups are always more powerful than individuals. The lesson here is simple. Try to avoid sub-tribes within your society. But keep in mind, you can never avoid nepotism completely. Every family behaves like this. A best practice guideline for human resources from your beloved government can probably help. It should outline concepts for screening, hiring, and propagation of people in companies. It should prefer meritocracy over nepotism. The no force, no punishment rule is important. It's a guideline, not a doctrine. Question number 2. Should interracial couples be forced to separate? The no force, no punishment rule applies immediately. But seemingly important is the idea not to reward unwanted behavior. Also, this is a good opportunity to invoke the good old patriarchy. The German state should pay child support only if the mother can prove the father of her child is a native German. This is a moderate way to disencourage race mixing and privilege men over women. Question 3. Should the government prevent citizens from leaving a country to preserve the race? I am not aware of the context of this question. However, the answer is no. The state shall not become a pathological monster. But I have to admit, after a coup d'etat, I would indeed close the borders for a while until people can judge what is going on. Otherwise, they would probably flee in panic. But closed borders for longer than 1 year is definitely unacceptable. Question number 4. Should the state control education? Boo, that's not a good question. When you rephrase the question, you turn it into a contradiction. Would you teach alt-right orthodoxy rather than critical thinking, is your rephrased question. Well, to my understanding, science and critical thinking is the orthodoxy of the alt-right. Let's put it this way. If you make me king of Germany tomorrow, I would modify the constitution like this. I purge the freedom of religion and declare a state religion instead. This is science. Validity, reliability, objectivity. A more detailed description what science is and which principle it follows should be in an appendix to the Constitution. Then I would add a paragraph which says Christianity is protected for cultural reasons. In case of Germany, this means Catholicism and Protestantism. They get benefits and privileges. This has implications for education. All state-driven institutions are forced to follow the state religion. Education is state-funded in Germany. In other words, goodbye feminism, goodbye postmodernism, goodbye ethics studies, goodbye gender studies, goodbye sociology, goodbye social work, etc. Unscientific stuff can be taught in specialized schools if necessary, but is definitely not rewarded and honored with an academic title. By the way, media is also forced to follow the state religion. Pretty much everything in public life has to follow the state religion. Just in church and in your private life, you can follow other directives. Question number 5. Should the state control the media? I perfectly get your point. Good question. The answer is a bit longer. In order to tackle complex issues like this, I wish to constitute a fourth branch of power. I would call it the community branch. You know, there is no rule which says you can only have 3 branches of power, even if Christians are obsessed with the number 3. What I have in mind is a hybrid economy which consists of a capitalistic free market and something else. The community branch is the other part. What I want to implement here are free systems which can be used by everyone and are owned by everyone. It can be seen as the foundation or the backbone of your society. A couple of secured systems. If a system, or rather its disruption, poses an immediate threat to your population or society, it might be worth to migrate it into the protected fourth branch. Shelter and food comes to mind first. Without this, your population will quickly suffer and die. I skipped the details how I would solve this. Energy, communication, and basic banking come to mind second. With basic banking, I mean I would split banking into basic and private banking. What I wish to say here is, without the ability to teletransfer value, our society will crumble immediately. The same applies for energy or communication blackout. And finally, media comes to mind, which leads back to your question. Without information, or with corrupted information, your society will be immediately misguided and in danger. This is my reason to provide a fourth branch media source. Private and corporate media is also allowed, just like private banking is. So, what is the fourth branch? Here is some explanation needed. The organizations of the community branch are founded by their own constitution. This constitution is rich in details on how they have to run their business. It describes what service they have to provide to the public. The basic bank, for example, will run the stock market, create the price index for conversion into the second currency. Yes, we need an economy with 2 currencies. They will operate the network of ATMs, have to provide an unrestricted payment system, prepay system, and so on. The Constitution will also force them to have a nice income structure, let's say a bell curve, slightly higher than average income, with a maximum ratio of 1 to 10 between the CEO and the low-paid workers. Also, they are forced to have a social fee table. If you are on welfare, your fees are small. If you have a good income, your fees are higher. Of course, the basic bank has to accept everyone as a customer who has a German passport. Also, their constitution will tell them what not to do. They will not pay interest. They will not sell houses or insurance. You cannot borrow money here. They will not provide advice, and so on. If you need any of this, you have to deal with the sharks in the private banking sector. The private banksters are free to provide every service they want. Also, they are forced to be 100% transparent. Their books and cash flow is open for everyone. If you wish to work for this type of organization, you are not allowed to be a party member. If you ever had a high-ranking position elsewhere, politics, corporations, political parties, you are also disqualified. You are sworn into the Constitution. Duty and guarantee of service is everything on this job. These organizations are allowed to make profit. Energy, communication, banking, this is high profit business. But their profit flows back to the state for redistribution to the public. In return, they are privileged. The relationship between the state and the community branch is pretty much like a modern disenfranchised father with his children. He has no influence, but he is forced to pay. The state will keep these organizations alive by any means necessary. I guess by now it should be clear what the intent of the fourth branch is. Back to the media. While private media is allowed, there is also community branch media, for example, an education TV. But foremost, I wish to have a news agency which is forced to a very strict code of work ethic by their constitution. They have to provide facts, raw, complete, and without opinion. Opinion pieces are allowed as long as they are separated from the facts, and they have to provide at last 2 opinions on every topic. 1 pro, 1 con. You get the idea. The form is meant to inspire thinking. Their constitution enforces unbiased coverage as good as possible. Of course, no media outlet will ever be totally unbiased. Nothing is ever perfect. But at last, this news agency would be independent.